What goes through her mind the moment she realizes you'll never text again? Not later, not someday, not ever. The silence she once saw as comfort suddenly turns into a mirror, showing her what she could never face. A man who no longer needs to speak to be understood. At first, it confuses her. She mistakes your peace for indifference, your stillness for absence. But brother, silence held with purpose is not emptiness, it's clarity. It's what happens when a man stops trying to be heard and starts mastering himself. You didn't vanish to prove a point. You stopped because you finally saw the truth. Chasing peace through chaos only destroys it. That's when silence becomes your teacher. It reveals who's truly in control, the man who reacts or the man who no longer needs to. And that's what this video will uncover, what unfolds inside her mind when your silence becomes permanent, and how that stillness transforms you from the one who waited into the one she can't forget. Drop a 1 if you'd still text, just to feel seen. Drop a 2 if you've learned silence says more. Like the video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and start this journey now. Because before silence becomes your weapon, it first feels like freedom. On. She thought silence was freedom. At first, she breathes easier. She mistakes your silence for peace, like she finally has room to breathe again. No unread messages lighting up her phone, no emotional tension, no expectation. She feels light, liberated, in control. She tells herself this is what she wanted all along, freedom. But freedom built on the illusion of control never lasts. What she doesn't see yet is that a stoic man's silence isn't surrender, it's intention. It's the calm decision to withdraw his energy from where it's no longer respected. Days pass, then a week, then 2. Still nothing from you. No calls, no apologies, no attempts to fix what was never yours to fix. The silence begins to change shape in her mind. What once felt like power now feels like absence. She starts to wonder, did you really move on? Is this really the end? That's when it hits her. Your silence isn't waiting, it's acceptance. It's the quiet moment a man chooses peace over chaos, dignity over debate. That realization cuts deeper than any argument could, because silence, real silence, doesn't scream, it reveals. It's not the sound of punishment, it's the sound of completion. And when a woman realizes a man has accepted what she could not appreciate, it shatters her illusion of control. She replays your old messages, the ones she used to skim over. Every word feels heavier now, like echoes from a man who no longer exists in her life. Those texts she took for granted begin to sound like a voice of calm she'll never hear again. She doesn't miss the attention anymore. She misses the man who gave it. The way your presence steadied her storms, the way your calm held space for her emotions without collapsing under them. It's not the conversation she craves, it's the security that conversation carried, because in a world of noise and reaction, your silence was something rare. It was grounded. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." She's realizing she wasted yours, your patience, your loyalty, your steadiness. You gave her what most men never could, consistency. But she was too caught in her own pride to see that it was the foundation holding her world together. Now that foundation is gone, and the quiet she once celebrated begins to feel like a void. That's when silence stops feeling peaceful and starts to haunt. It follows her into the night, through every scroll, every thought, every reminder that she is no longer the center of your attention, because the peace she thought she wanted has finally arrived, and it's colder than she imagined. And as she sits in that quiet, something shifts. The silence she created now surrounds her, mirrors her, and for the first time she sees the truth. She didn't lose a conversation. She lost a connection built on a man's calm strength. And silence, brother, always has a way of returning to those who once took it for granted. Because eventually, silence doesn't just end the story, it tells it. 2. Your silence becomes the mirror. She once believed silence was a weapon. She used it to test your patience, to measure your attachment, to see if you would break first. But now the roles have reversed, and what she once used to test you now tests her. Because silence, brother, is not just the absence of sound, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, she's finally forced to see what she's become. For the first time, she's trapped inside her own reflection, the same emptiness she once made you feel. When you stop responding, she no longer sees a calm man on the other side. She sees herself, restless, reactive, uncertain. The void she built around you now closes in around her. Your absence has turned into something she can't run from. It's not punishment, it's truth. The silence she thought she controlled now reflects every choice she made and every emotion she avoided. She tries to drown it out. New faces, new conversations, new distractions. She fills her days with noise, hoping to cover the echo. But the silence you left behind doesn't fade. It grows. It stretches into every quiet moment, every pause between thoughts. It becomes presence. It becomes weight. The same calm she once dismissed as indifference now follows her like a shadow. And this time, it doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like consequence. She can sense you've moved on, not just physically, but energetically. You're no longer waiting. You're not trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You've taken back your energy and turned it inward, building strength in the stillness she never understood. That's when regret begins to creep in, not loudly, but quietly. It arrives at midnight when she scrolls through old conversations. It shows up in the songs that once reminded her of peace. It whispers through the memories she thought she buried. Every ignored message she sent, every cold reply she gave now reflects her own arrogance back at her. What she thought was control now feels like loss. What she thought was confidence now feels like emptiness. Because your silence, brother, was never revenge. It was reflection. You didn't disappear to hurt her. You disappeared to heal yourself. You didn't ghost her. You grew past her. You outgrew the version of yourself that needed constant validation. You chose peace over reaction, wisdom over ego. That choice turned your silence into something unshakable, a force that reveals rather than hides. And in that mirror of stillness, she finally sees the truth. The calm she once mocked was strength all along. The man she underestimated didn't vanish, he evolved. Your silence didn't end the story, it rewrote it. Because silence, brother, doesn't vanish, it transforms. And soon, it begins to pull her back in, not through words or promises, but through the gravity of peace she once took for granted. The same silence that tested your patience is now testing her pride. And she's not winning this time. 3. The pull of absence. At first, she swore she'd move on easily. She told herself the silence was temporary, that her world wouldn't change just because yours went quiet. But as the days pass, the absence you created begins to pull at her like invisible gravity, steady, silent, inescapable. She doesn't miss the words, she misses the energy behind them, the calm tone that once anchored her, the quiet certainty that came from being near a man who didn't need to prove anything. That presence had a rhythm, and now that rhythm is gone. She tries to fill the space with distractions, friends, noise, meaningless attention, but none of it fits, because what's missing isn't sound, it's peace, the kind of peace that came from knowing someone understood stillness. Every new conversation feels forced. Every man she meets feels off. Not because they're unkind, but because they lack what you built within yourself: control. They react, you observed. They chase, you chose stillness. They speak to be heard, you spoke with purpose. And slowly, she realizes that your absence isn't emptiness, it's gravity. It holds a weight of its own. It pulls her thoughts back to you in quiet moments when she least expects it. At night, when the room grows still, she feels its strongest. The calm she once mocked is the stability she now craves. The silence that once irritated her now humbles her. Your absence exposes her chaos, and nothing torments a restless soul more than peace it can no longer touch. She starts to replay the moments she overlooked, the way you stayed centered when she pushed your limits, the way you stayed calm when she lost hers. Each memory becomes heavier with meaning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And now her thoughts are dyed with yours, with your composure, your steadiness, your control. The more she remembers how centered you were, the more the noise around her feels unbearable, because your absence is not the void she imagined. It's a reflection of balance she didn't know she'd miss. You've become her gravity, silent, distant, untouchable. The same man she took for granted has become the peace she can't replace. And she begins to understand something she never did before, that true presence doesn't need to speak, and real strength doesn't need to chase. But peace always demands a price. The calm she once dismissed as dull now exposes everything she ran from within herself. And as her ego begins to fracture under that truth, she learns the hardest lesson a woman can learn about a Stoic man. When he withdraws, he doesn't just leave her life. He leaves a silence that pulls her back toward herself. And that's when the quiet starts to turn on her. The peace she thought she could escape becomes the one thing she can't live without. 4. The collapse of ego. Her ego once whispered that she could replace you. That calm was boring. That consistency lacked excitement. She believed passion lived in chaos, that real love had to burn to feel alive. But now she sees the truth. It wasn't that you lacked fire. You had simply mastered it, and that's what her ego never understood. Restraint isn't the absence of emotion, it's command over it. You didn't react to prove a point, you stayed centered to preserve your peace. When she walked away, she thought she was making a power move. She told herself she was taking control, reclaiming her independence. But your silence revealed the reality she didn't want to face. She wasn't leading, she was running, escaping discomfort, not mastering it. She mistook your patience for permanence, believing you'd always be there no matter how far she pushed. She forgot that a Stoic man doesn't chase validation, he values self-respect. Now every man she meets feels different, too loud, too eager, too uncertain. Their confidence feels rehearsed, their affection feels conditional. They seek her approval because they need it. You never did. You were the calm center in every storm she created, and she mistook that stillness for indifference. What she called detachment was actually control. You weren't emotionless, you were emotionally disciplined. And now she sees the difference. She used to crave the thrill of unpredictability, thinking it meant passion. But she's learning that chaos isn't chemistry, it's confusion. And real stability doesn't dull the heart, it strengthens it. What once felt too steady now feels like everything she lost. True strength, she realizes, never needs to prove itself. It simply is. It doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. Seneca once said, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." She was deceived by the illusion of choice, by the false promise that excitement equals happiness. She traded depth for novelty and found emptiness disguised as thrill. She thought she could upgrade from peace to passion, but passion without peace is chaos in disguise. Now the truth hits her. She didn't walk away from dullness. She walked away from discipline. The very stability she once took for granted has become the rarest form of desire. Her ego starts to fracture under the weight of that realization. She begins to understand that you weren't just another man. You were the standard. The one who didn't compete, didn't chase, didn't fold under pressure. You held your line. You didn't argue your worth. You embodied it. And that's what breaks her. Because now, your silence isn't weakness. It's power. The stillness she once mocked has become the loudest presence in her mind. Every man she meets reminds her of what you were not. Impatient, reactive, uncentered. And the more she sees the difference, the more her pride begins to crumble. That's how the ego collapses, not with noise, but with awareness. And when pride finally breaks where peace once stood, the power shifts completely. The game she thought she was winning starts to reverse. And this time, she's the one learning the lessons your silence was always teaching. 5. When control reverses. She used to test your patience, your limits, your loyalty, just to feel powerful. Every silence, every delay, every mixed signal was part of her game to see how far she could pull you in. But something changed the moment you stopped reacting. The test flipped. She used to study your responses. Now she's haunted by your lack of them. That's the shift she never saw coming. The day you stopped chasing, the dynamic changed forever. Now she's the one being tested, and she doesn't even realize it. She checks your social media at night, scrolls through your photos, lingers too long on your stories. She waits for the familiar pattern, your name lighting up her screen, that predictable message that always made her feel desired. But that pattern is gone. You've learned the art of silence, not as a way to punish, but as a way to protect your peace. And that's something her mind can't decode. Her thoughts spiral out of control. Did he move on? Is he pretending? Does he even care? That uncertainty eats away at her confidence, because nothing unsettles the female mind more than a man she can't read anymore. You've become unpredictable in the calmest way possible. The man she thought she understood has evolved into a mystery, and mystery creates gravity. Your peace has become her chaos. The silence that once made her feel secure now makes her restless. She replays moments where she pushed too far, where she thought you'd always come back. But the man she remembers no longer exists. Your distance is her confusion, and her control slips through her fingers like sand. The more she tries to analyze your detachment, the more she feeds it. Every unanswered question becomes a mirror reflecting her loss of power. That's when the Stoic shift takes place, the silent reversal of energy that happens when a man stops needing to be chosen. You've stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped explaining. You've redirected all that energy back into yourself, into your growth, your peace, your purpose. And that energy becomes magnetic. You no longer chase love, you attract it through stillness. You no longer seek validation, you radiate self-respect. The balance has turned completely. You're no longer the man waiting for her attention. You've become the man she can't stop noticing. She feels your presence even in your absence. The silence she once used to test you now tests her endurance. The irony is that the moment you stopped fighting for control, you gained it completely. And that, brother, is the quietest and most powerful form of revenge, not fueled by ego, but by evolution. Because now, even if she reaches out, she won't find the same man on the other side. She'll find someone steadier, wiser, untouchable, someone who doesn't respond for approval, but only from clarity. The game she played has turned into her lesson, and as the silence lingers, she realizes it's not her control that defined the connection. It was your calm that gave it meaning. And that calm, now that it's gone, is the one thing she can't reclaim. 6. You've changed. She hasn't. It always begins quietly. A small message, a reaction to your story, a casual comment meant to sound innocent. She's reaching out, not because she truly misses you, but because she can't read you anymore. The calm energy that once made her feel secure now unsettles her. She's not chasing connection. She's chasing clarity. She wants to know if the door is still open, if she still holds any part of your attention. But what she doesn't realize is this: the man she's trying to reach no longer exists. You've spent nights rebuilding your mind, sitting in silence without fear. You've learned that solitude isn't loneliness, it's clarity. You've learned that peace is more attractive than validation, and that your worth isn't proven by who reaches out first. You used to measure progress by her responses. Now you measure it by your restraint. The stillness that once scared you has become your home. You've stopped looking for closure because you've learned that closure isn't given, it's created in silence. So when her message appears, you don't feel that rush anymore. No adrenaline, no nostalgia, just calm observation. The same text that once could shake your entire mood now feels neutral, because your reaction no longer belongs to her. You've detached the strings she once pulled so easily. You don't reply to feed her ego. You pause to protect your peace. She expects the old version of you to return, the one who explained himself, who apologized just to ease the tension, who tried to make her feel safe at the cost of his own self-respect. But that man is gone. What she finds instead is stillness. No anger, no chasing, no emotional performance, just quiet indifference. And that calm, unbothered energy cuts deeper than rejection ever could. Because indifference means acceptance, and nothing disarms a manipulative ego faster than a man who no longer needs to prove anything. Epictetus once said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." You've let the old version of yourself die, the one who sought to be understood, who believed peace required permission. Now you understand yourself. You've outgrown the cycle of explaining, pleasing, and waiting. You no longer need her validation to feel seen. You see yourself clearly, and that's enough. You don't need to announce that you've moved on. Your silence already says it louder than words ever could. The man who's mastered stillness doesn't text to prove his worth. He simply embodies it. You've changed in the most powerful way possible, by not needing to prove that you've changed at all. And from that stillness comes evolution, the highest form of control there is. Because once a man learns to master his own emotions, no one else can. And that, brother, is the kind of transformation that can't be undone. 7. The Silent Ascension. There comes a moment when silence stops being a reaction and becomes evolution. It's no longer about withholding words or teaching lessons. It's about rising above the noise entirely. Most men treat silence like a tactic, something temporary they use to regain power. But for the Stoic man, silence is transcendence. It's not an escape, it's ascension. It's the point where you stop seeking understanding from others and start understanding yourself. You've released the need to explain, to defend, to prove. You've let go of the version of yourself who once feared the quiet, who equated stillness with loss. And in that surrender, something profound happened. The universe handed you peace. What once felt like emptiness became expansion. What once felt like distance became alignment. You learned that silence isn't the absence of expression, it's the highest form of it. Now, you move differently. You no longer operate from emotion, you operate from clarity. You no longer chase outcomes, you control your mind. You see through the illusions of validation and ego. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength, the kind born from detachment, is what she feels now. Not through your messages, not through your presence, but through your absence. Your silence has become energy, living rent-free in her thoughts, echoing in the space where your words used to be. She feels it not because you're trying to make her feel it, but because true calm cannot be ignored. It exposes what's loud, what's anxious, what's unhealed. Your absence has become her mirror, reflecting the steadiness she once dismissed. Because your attention is now sacred. Your emotions are disciplined. Your energy has become expensive. You're no longer the man who reacts. You're the man who responds with intention, or not at all. You've become someone whose silence no longer represents distance, but arrival. You are fully present in your stillness, fully alive in your detachment. And in that space, brother, you win, not because she regrets, but because you no longer need her to. The real victory isn't when she looks back. It's when you stop looking at all. That's Stoic mastery. When peace becomes your loudest presence, and silence becomes your final statement. Because silence, when understood, isn't the absence of movement. It's the birth of transformation. It's where pain turns into power and attachment turns into awareness. You didn't retreat. You rose. You didn't disappear. You ascended. And that quiet elevation, the one built on discipline, clarity, and peace, is what makes you truly untouchable. Brother, when she finally understands, you'll never text again. It won't be your words that echo. It'll be your calm. Because every silence you held, every moment you chose peace over reaction, led you here, to mastery, not memory. You didn't lose her. You found yourself. And that, brother, is what true control sounds like. If you've reached that point where silence feels lighter than explanation, drop your answer below. And remember, stillness isn't the end of the story. It's where the man is reborn. Subscribe to Stoic Station and keep walking the quiet path toward your power.